Great, thank you, Martin, and it's great to hear from Stephen about some of the ways that Coke are becoming more resource efficient, and we are always looking for ways that we can collaborate together, both in the supply chain, also customer facing. So we've run a recycling customer campaign with Coke that went down very well. So what I don't want to do in the next 10 minutes is to try and give you a summary of our corporate responsibility report. There's a lot of good stuff in there, if you're into that kind of thing, and I just wouldn't do it justice. But instead I want to share with you some personal reflections over the last 18 months that I've been part of Tesco's climate change team, and I've been working particularly focused on our strategic goal of reducing the carbon footprint of the products we sell by 30% by 2020. And right up front, I want to say that this is a journey that we're on, and it's one of those journeys where actually the more you learn, the further you realise you have to go. And I suspect we'll look back on where we are today and realise at some point in the future that we're really only in the foothills of our journey towards sustainability at this point. And I've structured what I'm going to say around sort of 5 themes or lessons that we've learned, so it's going to be a little bit of a whistle-stop tour, but I hope some of these are broad enough that they are relevant to the resource challenges that you face in your businesses. So at one level, becoming more resource efficient is a little bit of a no-brainer. Why would any organisation want to be resource inefficient? But businesses and organisations generate a certain momentum. They do certain things in certain ways, and that's particularly true of a business the size and scale of Tesco. In order to get fresh produce on the shelves of 3,000 stores across the UK every day, there are a huge number of rigidities in our business that make us very inflexible in some senses. And we also have quite a small capacity to change, given all of those rigidities, given the scale of business that we're running on a day-to-day business. And that creates real challenge when you're looking at the sort of fundamental change that sustainability and resource efficiency is. So it's critical up front to get really senior level buy-in from the top of the organisation that resource efficiency and sustainability is something that the whole organisation is going to be committed to. Otherwise, it's just too easy to get pushed off that agenda. It's just like pushing water uphill. You don't make any progress. Now, at Tesco, we've been very fortunate. We've had fantastic leadership, initially from Terry Leahy, more recently from Phil Clark. But even in the transition there, we encountered some pushback. Oh, carbon reduction, that was Terry's baby. Not sure it's so important to the organisation now. So it's just really important that the business understands the strategic importance of this agenda and that the senior team are bought into that. My second point is that measurement is absolutely key. It's critical to know where you are and the trajectory that you're on, but it's not an end in itself. So it's really dull to say you can only manage what you measure, but at Tesco, that is how we run the business. We identify the right KPI, we set hard targets, we manage the delivery of those. Now that works for a lot of the business, but when you come into carbon land, measurement is a real challenge. Now it's fine around our energy consumption, our use of refrigerants and so on, but when you start looking at the overall life cycle impact of the products we sell, you've got to make lots of assumptions and estimations about what's going on in the supply chain and in the customer use of the product, or you've got to collect huge volumes of what can be quite sensitive data and manage all of that. So one reaction to this uncertainty is to want to do more and more detailed measurement work, but I really think that's the wrong way to go. Instead, you've got to recognise that you need to do just enough measurement to understand the lie of the land and to set a forward path, to identify the hotspots, a few key priorities, and to go after those. And I'm delighted that we're just coming towards the end of a major piece of measurement work where for the first time we're going to understand the overall impact of the products we sell in the UK by product type, by category, by life cycle stage, based on the sales volumes of products that we sell. Now, Best Foot Forward have worked with us on this, they've done a great job, but I'd be surprised if the answer is accurate to plus or minus 20%. But that's really not the point. The point is that this will enable us to engage with the business, the core commercial functions within the business, in a new way, talking about the footprint of their product groups, the carbon savings they've already made, the plans they have in place, and what needs to be achieved to get us on the right trajectory towards this 30% target. And where there are uncertainties, over time, we can backfill those with better data and so on. But it will be good enough for us to set very clear priorities within the business and to begin to communicate to the business in a way that the business really understands around targets, measurements and KPIs. My third point is that is that you have to work within the existing business processes. So it's sometimes tempting to think that sustainability is such an important issue that we can go round the side of the existing business decision-making processes. But in my experience, that just doesn't wash. There is no such thing as a free pass at our trade planning meeting where we decide how much shelf space to allocate to which products. There's no free pass at the meeting that decides what promotions we're going to run next month. There's no free pass at the Capital Investment Board. I found that one out particularly painfully at a personal level where a number of investments got declined. To be successful as a business, to be economically sustainable, we can't afford to subsidise green. Now, that works where the environmental impacts of resources are fully costed in to the resource cost. But as we all know, many environmental impacts are not properly costed in into the resources. So the challenge here, as I see it, is to use the existing processes, to work within them, to highlight some of those inadequacies and the way the current processes fall short of giving that holistic assessment. So some examples. How does the risk management process reflect that carbon emissions are broadly untaxed currently, or that water is underpriced? Is that somehow captured in them, and does that drive a business conversation about them? How does the capital approval process reflect the fact that the paybacks on alternative investments may be hugely dependent on assumptions about fossil fuel prices out into the future? And how does the budgeting process reflect trends in energy costs, in commodity prices, in resource scarcity, the impacts that those will have on the prices we can offer customers, but also availability of product, and how will customers react to that in the future? So the processes are very much geared around the current environment and short-term cost-based decision-making, and we need to work within those processes to highlight these broader, longer-term issues. Now, I've talked a lot about numbers and measurement and decision-making, and by background, I'm an engineer and an accountant, so kind of the numbers do it for me. But I recognise that for most normal people, the numbers need to sit alongside a broader vision, or maybe actually the numbers need to sit behind that broader vision as to how we're going to make the world a better place. And that's critically important, both for engaging employees and customers. Now, internally within Tesco, we've been quite proactive on this. We've run a Green Champions programme for a number of years. But externally, we've probably had a lower profile than some of the other big-name retailers. But this is something that we're refocusing on. We call it our community promises, and it encapsulates both our environmental responsibilities and our social responsibilities. And you can expect to hear more about that over the coming months. The best example I have here is our regeneration partnership. So since 2000, we have launched 42 new stores in deprived urban areas in the UK, and specifically recruited from the long-term unemployed in those local areas. And it's fantastic to see the life-changing opportunities that this has created for those employees. Now, what's the equivalent of that in the environmental space? What are we going to be famous for around the environmental agenda? I think that's a real challenge that we're still working through at the minute. So as you can imagine, there have been some quite tough days over the last 18 months when the executive support was not obvious. The numbers didn't make sense, even to me. The Capital Approvals Board wasn't giving money to anybody, let alone an environmental initiative. But that's where you come in. So in the room, there are a lot of our suppliers, and that's a real source of encouragement to us. The way the Knowledge Hub is working for us, the way suppliers are making great strides forward, investing in more efficient equipment, reducing their packaging, improving their distribution, innovating new products. And even more important than that, they're prepared to share their insights and their experiences within our supply chain. Sustainability, resource efficiency isn't a journey that we can be successful on our own. We really do need this collaboration throughout the supply chain. So can I finish by thanking our suppliers and encouraging you all to continue contributing, because without that collaboration, the task is a whole lot harder. Thank you.